Hey guys, Krisamerikos with you for another video. Today we're going to talk about IELTS. Now, a lot of people who are taking the IELTS exam want to know if they should take the general IELTS exam or the academic IELTS exam. And I understand why. It's a little confusing. So this video is going to help clear up some questions that you might have about the difference between the two exams. Honestly, the two exams are pretty similar. And before you take either of them, you should find out if you need the general exam or the academic exam. How can you find that out? Well, probably you want to take the IELTS so you can get a job overseas, or so you can get into a university or a college abroad, or for several other reasons. But the main two reasons are to study or to work in another country, and usually an English-speaking country. So let's compare these two exams. First of all, both exams have 4 parts, and both exams are the same length, and there are 4 parts in each exam. They're split into 2 categories, what we usually call the productive skills, which are writing and speaking, and the receptive skills, which are listening and reading. The listening, reading, and writing parts of the exam are completed on the same day. You go to a testing center where they administer the exam, and you take the exam in their testing center. The speaking section of the exam can be done a week before or a week after you take the other parts of the exam. The total length of the exam is 2 hours and 45 minutes. Now, what are the differences between the general exam and the academic exam? Well, the listening and speaking parts of the exam are the same. Only the reading and writing parts of the exam are different. Most people consider the academic IELTS to be more difficult than the general IELTS. Okay, so let's talk about the different parts of the exam. The listening part, which is the same for the general IELTS and the academic IELTS, consists of 4 recordings. On these audio recordings, you'll hear native English speakers. After you listen to the recordings, you'll answer a series of questions. The first recording is a conversation between 2 people about something from everyday life. The second recording is one person speaking about everyday life. Now, when I say everyday life, there might be different types of topics that they discuss. But in general, the IELTS considers the topics that they speak about everyday topics. Things that people should know in order to properly navigate life in an English-speaking country. The third recording is of a conversation between up to 4 people. This conversation takes place in an educational or training context. And the fourth recording is of one person speaking about academics. So, the last 2 recordings are considered to be more academic based. But don't forget that this is both for the general IELTS and for the academic IELTS. So even if you're taking the general IELTS, you need to know something about academics. Now, what are academics? When I say academics, what I'm talking about is you need to know something about studying, about classrooms, about how the process of education works in English-speaking countries. Your people who are judging your answers to the questions about these 4 recordings are looking for specific content. They want to see that you understand the main ideas of the recordings. They want to see that you understand detailed information that was expressed in the recordings. They want to make sure that you understand the opinions that the speakers in the recordings shared. They want to make sure that you understand exactly what different phrases mean that the speakers say. And the last thing they want you to be able to do is to follow the development of ideas expressed in recordings. The listening section lasts 30 minutes, which is pretty short compared to the next section, which is the reading section. The reading section lasts 60 minutes. It consists of 40 questions that are designed to judge your reading skills. Which reading skills? Well, reading for gist, or the general idea of something, reading for the main ideas, reading for details, skimming, which means briefly looking over a text, understanding logical arguments in a text, and being able to understand writers' opinions, attitudes, and reasons for writing specific phrases. Now, remember I told you the reading section of the test is different for the academic IELTS and the general IELTS. Let's start with the general IELTS. The general IELTS reading section is made up of reading material that you would find in a usual English-speaking environment on a daily basis. Things like newspapers, books, magazines, advertisements, handbooks, manuals, guidebooks, and others. On the other hand, the academic IELTS contains different kinds of texts. It contains 3 long texts that are about a range of different topics. Again, these texts are taken from books, magazines, journals, but they have been selected for non-specialists. That means you don't need to have professional knowledge in these spheres. They're mostly aimed at people who are entering universities or who are starting a profession. The next section of the exam is the writing section, and it's also 60 minutes long. The general IELTS has 2 writing tasks. In the first task, they give you a situation, and you need to write a letter requesting information or explaining the situation. You need to be careful about using the correct style of writing. I mean, formal, semi-formal, casual. It's really important to gauge this. It's really important to understand which style of writing you should use to describe the situation they give you. The second task that they give you is an essay. And this essay is about a point of view or an argument. In most cases, this essay will be very personal, so you don't have to worry so much about formal writing. The academic IELTS writing section is also made up of 2 tasks. In the first task, they will give you a chart or a graph, and then they'll ask you to summarize or explain what is shown in this graph or chart in your own words. They might want you to describe the stages of a certain process, or how something works, or maybe a specific event or object. The second task is an essay. In this essay, you need to respond to an argument or to a point of view, similar to the second task in the general IELTS. However, one major difference here is that in the academic IELTS, both writing tasks need to be completed in a formal writing style. The last section of the test, which is not different on the general and the academic IELTS, is the speaking section. The speaking section lasts between 11 and 14 minutes. Now you're probably thinking, wait, 30 plus 60 plus 60 plus 14, that's not 2 hours and 45 minutes, that's 2 hours and 44 minutes. I know, 2 hours and 45 minutes gives us enough time to complete all of the sections of the exam. The speaking section of the exam is recorded. The speaking section is broken into 3 parts. In the first part, the examiner will ask you general questions about yourself and about familiar topics like home, your city, family, work, interests, you know, the basics. This part usually lasts between 4 and 5 minutes. For the second part of the speaking section of the exam, you will be given a card. And on this card, you'll have a particular topic. First, you'll have 1 minute to prepare what you're going to say about this topic, and then you'll have up to 2 minutes to speak about this topic. After that, the examiner will ask you a couple questions to follow up on this topic. In the third part of the speaking section of the examiner will ask you more questions about the topic that you had in part 2. The general idea of the third part of the speaking section is for you to be able to express more abstract and deeper ideas about this topic. This part of the exam usually lasts about 4 or 5 minutes. Now I know, for those of you who have already done a lot of research about the IELTS and about the differences between the academic IELTS and the general IELTS, this might be old information. But don't worry, I'm going to make other videos describing each section in more detail so that you can fully prepare for this exam. If there's anything that I've learned from training people and preparing people for the IELTS, it's this. The most important things to do in preparing for the IELTS are the following. Study a lot, compare your notes with someone else, for example, a teacher, and don't be nervous. Be confident, especially on the day of the exam. And when you go to do your speaking part of the exam, which a lot of people consider to be the most difficult, because let's face it, you can read, write, and listen at home by yourself, but you can't really get good speaking practice alone. So You need to practice with someone else. And when you come to the exam and you're sitting in front of the examiner, confidence is going to help you get a higher score. So be confident in your abilities, be confident in yourself, and make sure to study. If you do all of those things, you're gonna do great. I hope that helps you understand the differences between the general IELTS and the academic IELTS. Don't forget to press like, press subscribe, and leave a comment down below. Thanks for watching this video and stay tuned for more. Until next time, it's Krisamerikos.